to the Mango Effect podcast, where every week we explore a range of ideas and inspiration that all culminate in designing the lifestyle that we've always dreamed of. No topics are off limits. We get into the practical, the hypothetical, and the downright juicy stuff. I'm Mindi Rosser, your host and lifestyle cheerleader, and I am really excited to be here with you today because we're going to talk about what is the Mango Effect. So this is a question I get asked all the time, like, Mindi, I've heard you talk about the Mango Effect, and I want to know, where did it come from? Why is it that you use that term? What is going on with the Mango Effect? And I like to think of the Mango Effect as the way that I do life and kind of how I see the world. So it's almost like the lens through which I view everything, both personally, professionally, and it's really not about reinventing the wheel. Like, I'm not trying to come up with something that's like brand spanking new that you've never heard of before. It's about synthesizing all of the great things that we've learned, that I've learned from other programs and people. And I like to discuss topics that really help us live better lives and, again, kind of create that lifestyle by our own design. So I've seen so many of my friends, my colleagues, my peers, people that I went to school with, like really struggling to figure out how to create a lifestyle by design. And a lot of them have reached out over time saying, Mindi, how in the heck did you move to Hawaii? Like, you're a Midwestern girl, you grew up in Chicagoland, and now you're a surfer with dreadlocks and you're on Oahu? Like, how did all of this happen? And I think it's a process. And a lot of us look at other people that we aspire to become, or other people that just seem to have it all together, or they just seem so sure of themselves. And I love seeing others like that too, because they are so inspirational. But what happens here is sometimes we just look at them like, oh yeah, they're inspiring, but we do nothing to take what they have learned and apply that to our own lives. So for us, with the Mango Effect, with this podcast, I want to inspire you to start looking at other people that inspire you and actually take action and figure out, I wonder if I could reverse engineer that for myself. And maybe you don't want the exact success that they have, but maybe there's an element of their life, maybe an element of their work, of the way they do something, whether it's fitness or exercise or health or family, that you can apply to your own life. That's what the Mango Effect is all about. And that's the message that we want to share. All right. So if you don't know me, you probably are like, Mindi, okay, you mentioned Chicagoland. Where are you from? Who are you? So basically, I'll give you, in a nutshell, where I come from, how I got here, and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So not too long ago, about 3 years ago from when I'm recording this, I decided with my husband that we needed a change in our family. I met my husband. We've been together for almost 10 years now, and we have lived over just about every place in the United States that you can think of. We lived up and down the West Coast in California. I've lived in New York, also lived in Chicago. I lived outside of Chicago. I lived in the suburbs, in the city, San Francisco, Big Bear in California, San Luis Obispo, California. So lots of places. No place ever felt like home. No matter how many times we moved, just thinking, oh, it'll be better wherever we're going to go next, it never felt quite right. And so we were on this search, this journey, really trying to figure this out. Like, okay, there's got to be a place where we can stop. We're tired of like bouncing around and it's never quite right wherever we are. So what we did was we sat down. It was right before Christmas, and we said, okay, let's ask ourselves this question. If there was any place in the entire world where we could live, where would that place be? We sat there, we're like, oh, okay, should we put limits on this? Should we put stipulations? Is it too expensive? Is it not where we exactly want to be? Are we making concessions here? And we both looked at each other and said, you know what? If price is not an issue, it would definitely be Hawaii. And we said, okay, let's do it. Just like that. But thankfully, we both have like this way of looking at life through a lens where if we decide on something and if it makes sense to us, that we just go all out and go for it. And the worst that could happen is it doesn't work out. So in our minds, like, okay, the worst that could happen is we go to Hawaii, we actually live there for a bit, and we don't like it as much as we think we do. Okay, that probably cost us $40,000 and we'll be back to the mainland, no problem. So it really wasn't too hard of a decision, I think, for us to come to, and we're kind of a bit more on the risk-taking end. And we've also had a lot of discussions, like lots of heart-to-heart discussions where we talk about our dreams, what we like, what we don't like. And so we're pretty well connected in that sense. So we said, okay, let's do it. We're going to move to Hawaii. And we lived just outside of Chicagoland, or outside of Chicago. So in Chicagoland, Northwest Indiana. So it's cold there in the winter. It was right around the holidays. So the cold weather was setting in. So we were pretty motivated. So by January 1st, there was a dumpster in front of our house and we started renovating our house. It took us 3 months to get it ready to sell. We sold our house in April. We moved here in April, right as we were signing documents, pretty much. And we have lived here for 3 years, just about 3 years now. That journey has been one of the most transformative of my life, of my family's life, of Jason's life, my life partner, my husband. And it actually kind of started this whole mango effect thing because we finally found the place where we belonged, but we were willing to take a risk to get there. We had a dream. We looked at it. We said, okay, I think that is achievable. We prepared ourselves and we actually took action. So many people that I talk to say, oh, if I could just live in Hawaii. Oh, if I could just live here or there, wherever that place is, but they never take the action to actually take one step towards it. They never have the conversation necessary to take that next step. And I think that's how we're different. It's like thinking in terms of, okay, this is a possibility. How do I make that a reality? And sometimes dreams just stay dreams and we don't actually explore them further. So there's a lot of thinking that comes into play. I'm not advocating that we do random things, that we go off the wall and make crazy decisions. Yes, they need to be thought through. But once you make the decision, actually take the action to move that forward. And now, not, oh yeah, when the kids are grown or 10 years from now, or when I have, this huge emergency fund and I can buy a house outright on the North Shore of Oahu, then I'll make the move. Because it's never going to happen. So what you have to decide is, what risk are you willing to take? What's the worst that could happen if it doesn't pan out? And are you willing to take that risk? And when? And that's it. And once you take that risk, it's usually not as scary as you expected it to be. And the worst that can happen is it doesn't work out and you go back to doing whatever you were doing before. So that is kind of bringing us to the point where now, what we have learned through that whole process of relocating and moving across the ocean, we didn't know anybody here on the island. So we had to build every single thing from scratch. But it made us a stronger family unit. We have 2 children at home. One is grown. She is 19, so she is out of the house. But she was with us at the time. So the 5 of us had to band together and be each other's advocates and help each other kind of adjust to the island. And it is definitely another country. It is not like just moving to Florida from the Midwest. It is definitely something very, very different, very special, but very unique, and it's not for everyone. So my challenge to you today is is there a dream? As you're hearing me talk about this story, is there something that comes to mind for you that you're thinking, Mindi, I have this dream and it sounds so crazy, but I want to do it. I really want to do it. It's something that has been in the back of my mind and something that I'm passionate about. Maybe it's a project you want to start. Maybe it's a place you want to go travel to. Maybe it's a relationship adventure you'd like to have. Whatever that may be, I want to challenge you to give it some more thought and stop putting it on the back burner. Because that may just start a chain of events that's going to change the course of your life in a very positive direction. Okay, so the mango effect. Where did the mango effect come from? So once we moved to the island, we first lived in a very small condo. Very, very small. 2 bedrooms small. 800 square feet small. Which was quite a big difference from being on the mainland in a, relatively large Cape Cod house. It took some adjusting, but we made a decision as soon as we got here that we were going to explore the island, kind of figure out where we wanted to be. Did we like surfing? Would we like paddleboarding? What activities would we like? Would we want to go hiking? Did we want to live a little closer to town? Where on the island did we want to be? So we gave ourselves about a year to figure that out. By the end of that year, we said, we know where we want to be. It's definitely the North Shore of Oahu. So we fell in love with surfing. Neither of us had surfed before we got here. I think my husband had taken like a surfing lesson when he was a kid, but that was about it. I had never been on a skateboard or a surfboard before we moved here. I took a lesson and I was totally hooked. So we knew that we had to be close to the water. So we figured out, okay, North Shore of Oahu, that's where we're going. Let's definitely find a place there. But if you're not familiar with Hawaii, it is like this little small town. And you cannot just say, I have money. Can I get your place? Can I rent your house? It doesn't work that way. You have to jump through a lot of hoops. You have to live here for a while. You have to get to know people. It's this entire process of kind of integrating yourself so people recognize you and know that you're trustworthy. So it's very, very tribal in that sense. So it took us a little while. It took us about 6-8 months to get to the North Shore and find a place that actually fit our needs. And in the backyard, there are 2 trees, 2 mango trees. And I was stoked. As soon as we saw the property, I'm like, we have to have this house. Mangoes are my absolute favorite fruit on the planet. And in my raw vegan days, that's a long story. I will not go there today. But in my raw vegan days, I used to eat like 4 to 5 mangoes in one sitting. Like I love them that much. They're so good. So when I saw the mango tree, I'm like, we have to rent this place. It's perfect. So we did. So we signed the lease and we have been here for, just over a year-ish, a little more than that. And we love it here. And there was something about the mango tree that was just pulling me. And my husband and I, it's right outside our window. It is like in the background if you watch any of my live streams, Mondays with Mindy, if you like live streams about LinkedIn stuff, you'll see the mango tree. And the mango tree is just really special. Like every time I see it, it just makes me happy. And there are a lot of things about the mango tree that are special. One of the things, we have chickens. If you don't know anything about Hawaii, they're like these wild chickens that run around. Like chickens that you would see penned up, on the mainland. They kind of just run everywhere. There's roosters everywhere. There's chickens everywhere. And you think, who do they belong to? Nobody. They're just wild. They're like wild chickens everywhere. And they like to hang out in that mango tree. So it's really fun to watch them fly up into the tree at nighttime to stay away from predators. And then the mango tree itself it has that shade. It kind of keeps our back patio really nice and cool, especially when it gets really warm and the sun is beating down. And then it produces the most delicious mangoes. Like we experienced our first season this last year, and that's where the mango effect kind of came to be. We were watching the tree and we were watching the mangoes grow, and we're like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so many mangoes. It's going to be insane. It's going to be crazy. And it was, there had to have been at least 2,000 mangoes, if not more, that came from that tree. And so it got us talking, like my husband and I, Jason, we're talking about the fact that when it comes to a mango tree, there's a lot that goes into it. It's not like you get mangoes right away. It takes a lot of thought. You got to wait for the tree to grow. And the mango trees are kind of finicky. Like they don't give you fruit every season, every year. You kind of aren't sure. Usually it's every year, but sometimes it's every 2 years. It just kind of depends on the conditions and what the mango tree likes to do. And when it rains, it pours. Like when there are mangoes, there are tons of mangoes, especially if the tree is healthy. So there were just so much metaphor, I think, wrapped up into the mango trees. So I actually started talking about the mangoes because they were just everywhere in my background when I was doing my live streams for my business. And I just couldn't help myself. I'm like, this mango tree is amazing. And then we started talking about how mangoes apply to business and how a mango tree is like a business. Like it takes a while to grow, but once you get it going, it's like there's no stopping it. You're going to have tons of mangoes. Can have a very profitable business. And so the mango effect was born in that way. But I think the mango effect is not just about business. It's not just about money. It's not just about finances. It's about how you see life and kind of and for me personally, like how the island has affected how I live life and how I see the world. Moving here to Hawaii and just immersing myself, not trying to stay an outsider, but really try to embrace the culture has been transformative for me. And the mango effect is a way that I can express it. It's like this transformation has happened from like the outside in and from the inside out. Like I feel like a very different person than I used to be on the mainland. And it's a really special thing, and I want to share that with other people. And you don't have to live on Hawaii to make the mango effect work for you. It can work for you from wherever you are. You don't have to be in a special place. If moving is going to help you, achieve your mango effect or live that way, live that flowing lifestyle, then great. Figure out exactly where you need to be and make that happen. Some of you want to stay where you are, but you want the mango effect to happen and affect other areas of your life. So moving into that, what does that look like? What does that look like for you? When you're thinking about your lifestyle, like how do you want it to look? I think so many of us just kind of get put on a track and we just start going. Like we just think, okay, I'm going to go to college, I'm going to get a degree, or I'm not going to go to college and I'm going to become an entrepreneur or a YouTuber, as my daughter likes to say. Both of my kids want to become YouTube stars now. I guess that's a career thing. I don't know. But that's their choice. Whatever they want to do, I'm very supportive. But whatever it is, that path that you got on, you can change it. So if you're going down that path and you're thinking, this is not working out quite like I was hoping, you can actually change that path. Like right then and there, you can use the same skill sets that you've learned and picked up along the way and pivot and do something a little bit different that's more aligned with your lifestyle. And a lot of us are afraid to do that. But what's the worst that can happen? Hey, you don't like it and you decide to do something else or go back to what you were doing before. But why not take that chance? So when I'm looking at life, there was something really powerful that struck me. About 2 years ago, after we moved here, I came across a program called Lifebook. You can look them up, by John and Missy Butcher. And they created a system and a way to look at life that has inspired the mango effect and also kind of how I've gone about living life. I'm like, oh, somebody actually created a process in a system for this. Like I was trying to do it without a system and a framework. And I remember Jason and I had so many conversations. I said, you know what? If somebody just created like a system for how to live life or how we could design our own life, that would be so cool. And lo and behold, yes, there was a system for that in Lifebook. And so there were a lot of different categories. There are actually 13 categories, 12 official ones, and 13 is the bonus one. And these are the categories that I pay attention to on a daily basis, weekly, monthly, kind of in a rhythmic basis. And they have helped me shape the lifestyle that I have. And so I'm going to share them with you. So the first, I'm just going to go through the 12 categories. You can kind of hear what they are. And then it's inside of the mango effect. And in the podcast episodes, we're going to talk about different categories. We're going to talk about the tough topics that nobody is talking about or very, very few people are talking about. We're going to get into some juicy stuff, controversial stuff. But here's just an overview of the different categories of life. So first we have health and fitness. I feel like this is kind of like the foundational category for most of us because without health, without some level of fitness, whatever that is, we are not able to live our best life. So health and fitness is a category that I am personally very passionate about. If you've seen any of my Instagrams, you will probably see a lot of fitness, surfing, health nut stuff in there. Then category number 2 is intellectual. So intellectual is just how are we stimulating our mind? Before Lifebook, I didn't even think about the intellectual category from that lens. Like I knew I was a learnaholic and I love learning, but I didn't know how to structure that. And how do I kind of foster this? It's definitely a strength of mine, but it needs to be tamed a little bit because I just kind of go on learning binges, which we will talk about in future episodes. Then the category number 3 is emotional. This is probably one of my weaker categories, I would say. Emotional stuff and just how do we process emotions? How do we engage in a healthy way with our emotions? Like how do we interact with other people? So the emotional side of life. Number 4 is character. I like this one very, very much because this is like where we get to set our values and what are the different values and character traits that we prioritize. They don't have to look like anyone else's. They are our own, and it's special. Like, I love the character category. Number 5 is spiritual. So what does your spiritual life look like? You don't have to be a Christian or a Buddhist or Muslim, any specific denomination or any type of religion. It's just about being in touch with the spiritual side, whatever spiritual looks like to you. And to me, being spiritual is being in touch with the ocean. So being in nature is really important to me. Kind of connecting on that level with my surroundings is critical to my spirituality. Number 6 is going to be the love category. So this is for relationships. And even if you aren't in a relationship right now, paying attention to this category is critically important. You can be in a relationship just with yourself. And so the love category is just how do we express love to those who are closest to us. Category number 7 is parenting. So even if you aren't a parent yet, or you're not planning to be a parent, but you have little ones inside your sphere of influence, you can definitely benefit from this category. And just how do we interact with that next generation that's coming up? What lessons are we teaching them? How are we learning from them? It's a two-way street. And more on, I just think about the joy of being a child. There's just so much to learn from that. Then category 8 is the social category. This is also one of my weaker categories. A lot of people think that I like to talk and I probably am like the social butterfly, but I am not. Put me in front of a camera and I'm like, yes, lights on. I will kind of do the whole social thing, but put me in a social situation with like real people, like at the beach or in a party setting or at a conference, and I tend to freeze up because I am very much an introvert. So this is a category that I have personally been working on to really strengthen my friendships. I like to have a few close friends and then also kind of grow in that department. Category 9. Financial. Financial is pretty straightforward, but this is where we are thinking about wealth. How are we going about our business? What are we doing to provide a legacy to our children? And those types of things. Number 10 is career. So what are we doing in our careers? We could be business owners. We could be careerists. We could be subject matter experts, thought leaders, authors, speakers, whatever it is you want to fill in here. How are you moving your career forward? And a lot of us tend to set goals here, but this is still a category that is really, really important to pay attention to, and not just the tangible goals, but also the intangible stuff that comes with being in the right career and really thriving as a human. Number 11, quality of life. This is huge for me because we live on Oahu. And so the quality of life is really great, but there are certain elements that we kind of give up by being here. When you're on an island, there are a lot of quality of life things that are just a lot more expensive here than other places. But the flip side of that is that we are surrounded by nature and beauty. And so even if our houses are smaller and we don't have as much access to Amazon Prime, still the quality of life is so much higher for us. So you have to figure out what quality of life looks like for you. Number 12 is life vision. So where are you headed in life? And this one is one that a lot of us overlook. We set like these goals. We set these annual goals. We set quarterly goals. We set weekly goals. And some of us just don't set goals at all. We say, who cares about goals? But life vision is really about the direction that you're headed. Like, where do you see yourself in 5-10 years? What do you want that journey to be like? And that is part of the life vision. And it really takes going through those first 11 categories to figure out what your life vision should be. Then number 13. This is the bonus category. This is the juicy one. This is sex and intimacy. So yes, we are going to get juicy here. And Jason will probably join us for some of these episodes because there is a lot, I think, when it comes to intimacy, when it comes to sex, when it comes to our partners that we just don't talk about. We don't explore. And this is so critical to our well-being, to being healthy, to interacting, to having that vibrance, or as some people put it, the eudaimonia, that comes with living a happy life. So those are the 13 categories. And think about which one feels like your strongest category. Like if I had to think about mine right now, it'd probably be health and fitness, just because I love that one so much. And then you think about your weakest category. For me, my weakest category would probably be, I'm looking right now, probably the social category. It's definitely one that I need to build, especially with the pandemic stuff. And it's just a little tougher to get together with people. So when we look at our categories, we always have a category of strength and then a category of focus. So a category that we're really working towards optimizing. All right. So this is kind of like the framework. These 13 categories are going to be the topics and kind of the framework that we will be using for this show. And each week we will be exploring a different topic in one of the life categories from the Mango Effect perspective. My intention with this podcast is really to share from the heart, kind of like what's working, what's not working, what have I tried, how do we go about life, what's it like, all of these different hard questions that we ask ourselves. And sometimes we just said, I wish somebody would talk about this. My husband and I have sat around so many times saying, somebody's got to talk about this. And we both looked at each other and said, I think it's going to be up to us to talk about this because nobody is. And I think that's what I want this place to be. That's what I want this podcast to be. I want it to be a safe place where we can share ideas, exchange ideas, where I can get to know you as well if you're open to that two-way conversation. And my challenge to you this week is to start thinking about the different categories of your life. Maybe you've never thought about your life from these different categories and that perspective. Is there one category you'd like to improve? And if you want to share it, you can DM me on Instagram. I'm going to close it there for today because there's so much more that I want to talk about, but we'll save it for another episode. So if you like what you hear, please subscribe to the Mango Effect podcast wherever you are listening to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. And I would absolutely love it if you could write a 5-star review for the show if you are loving it too. We are a new show, so any reviews and subscribes we get will definitely help us as we grow. All right, I will talk to you all next week. Thank you so much and have a beautiful rest of the week.